Episode 8: How the Inner Child Shapes the Super Empath. Many of us don't realize that the tender, sensitive child within us didn't just disappear as we grew older. That inner child is still alive, quietly influencing how we feel, how we love, and how deeply we connect to others. For empaths, this connection runs even deeper. It's where their ability to sense and feel beyond the ordinary begins. As children, we may have been told we're too sensitive or too emotional, or that we care too much. But those very qualities, when nurtured, are the root of the super empath. What felt like a burden or a wound as a child may actually be the seed of your greatest power, your ability to see into others' hearts, to hold space for pain, and to sense energy beyond words. In today's episode, we're going to explore how the inner child shapes the super empath. We'll look at how early wounds create patterns of overgiving, how sensitivity transforms into intuitive gifts, and most importantly, how healing and reparenting your inner child allows you to step into balanced, empowered empathy. As far back as I can remember, I have always been a sensitive child. I felt everything. I was awake and aware of everyone's energy from a very young age. I think the way I could read people is one of the biggest reasons why I never fit in any one given situation. I was always on the outside looking in, on the edge of the experience. The black sheep, as they say. When I listened to music, I could feel the actual emotion that the songwriter had when writing it, and the pure energy the singer had when they belted out the notes. I craved solitude to help regulate my energy. One of my absolute favorite things to do was drive around in my car on some backcountry road with the windows down. I would blare the stereo to some of my favorite songs, singing at the top of my lungs. I would never do this with someone in the car, just when I was alone. In that moment, I was truly free and in love with who I was. I could not show this side of me to anyone because I didn't want to be seen. In this private space it created, I would essentially soar like a bird on a beautiful summer's day. I have only met one other person in my life who was exactly like me. This person understands what it feels like to be this free. And he too hid this part of himself. My empathy has created and hindered my progress throughout my adult life. You see, my empathy was birthed through trauma, and it helped me create and connect to people in a way that I could not have done if it wasn't for the pain caused in my youth. I like to say, how do you know the light without exploring all of your darkness? As much as most people say I would like to go back and change one thing, I can honestly say I would not change it at all. For all of this pain someone has placed on me, it has altered who I am and turned me into the person I am today. A super empath. I am so awake and aware, I can see people for truly who they are. I can notice if there's a broken little boy inside of you waiting to be seen or heard, wanting to be held and told they're safe. I can see if you need me to fight for you, or if you need me to just leave you alone. I believe this is truly a gift. I'm able to discern what is for me and what is not. Even though my childhood trauma made me an empath, coupled with already being a highly sensitive person, and a current event awakening me even more, has turned me into a super empath. I believe we are sent here to this earth to learn lessons. I signed up for the ultimate masterclass. I have not graduated, but I just completed one of the hardest courses to date. You see, I dated my twin flame who mirrored all of the things I needed to see and learn about myself. It has been one of the hardest, most challenging, and most rewarding experiences and relationships of my life. Recently, after being together for almost 2 years, he got up one day and just left. Not much of a warning, just said I can't do this anymore and walked away. When you're in a relationship that has such a profound spiritual component to it, you are intertwined on such a deep vibrational level, an enormous piece of you dies inside. I could not sleep. I could not eat, let alone function on a daily basis. I suffered this death in silence because no one would understand the depths of my pain. I was going to the gym every day to help release this toxic, negative energy, but nothing was helping. I was puking every day from this toxic stress of the loss. If you know what this is like, I am sorry. It is the worst kind of pain. I would puke up bile more than 40 times in a day, and I would cry until I could no longer see. My heart ached so bad I could barely breathe. The only thing that helped me, even a little bit, was listening to high vibrational music that spoke to my situation, bringing me comfort and pain at the same time. I would work out so much I could barely walk at the end. I would exhaust my body and my mind so I could sleep and rest from this vicious cycle of pain. I still stand here to this day showing gratitude. Why, you may ask? For if I did not know the deepest, darkest parts of me, how do I know the light? If I never loved and lost this hard, how could I truly show up for the next person? What this experience did was catapult me into the super empath status. You see, I was still living this life for someone else. I was pouring into someone else's cup and not my own. You are meant to come here and awaken and focus on healing yourself. When you pour into you, you pour into the collective and raise the vibration of this earth. But when you're focused on the exterior, you're not doing yourself or this world any justice. Think about a mother who has 5 children. She does not take time to work on herself and starts to lose her spark. One day, all of her kids have moved on and created families of their own. Now this empty nester is depressed and overweight because she neglected her own needs for so long. She has no idea where to begin. If she only had the courage to take small steps daily to create her dream life, she would be better off today. These following statements relate to how my childhood trauma experienced and being a highly sensitive person and becoming an empath created my future. Here are some of the things I believed while growing up. I am not good enough. I live in fear and with shame. I believe what other people thought about me was true. I had a hard time trusting people because everyone I ever loved hurt me. I could only trust strangers, but I could not get close to them. I choose to spend time with people who treated me poorly because I thought that is what love was. Because I was often neglected, I found solitude in being alone because alone felt safer. I chose partners who had a lower vibration than me because it felt safe. The runner-chaser dynamic. Recently, when my current partner walked away from our relationship with no warning or reason, I learned quickly about attachment styles. I realized I was anxiously attached and he was an avoidant. This topic is for a whole nother podcast episode, but the reason I'm bringing this up now is the exact moment he left me, my attachment style was brought to my attention. I am obsessed with human behavior and why people do the things they do, so I began to do the research. I quickly realized I was like the mother in the earlier example. I wanted to pour everything into the relationship, but by me doing so, he became scared and walked away. Ultimately, he was afraid to be seen, and I was afraid to lose and to not be chosen. My trauma is deep-seated in not being chosen. I was always dismissed and pushed aside. I was always chosen last in everything, in sports, in dance class, the list goes on. I felt safer in my life doing things alone. I knew I could depend on me. When I decided to pick up a sport, I chose things like gymnastics, bodybuilding, fitness modeling, and competitive trampoline. All of these sports were single-person players. It was me against the scoreboard. Essentially, what I put in, I got out. My win wasn't dependent on a team effort. Like I mentioned in the last episode, my ex cheated on me and I chose to stay single. That lasted for over 15 years. I didn't feel like I could trust anyone at all. Sure, I dated people, but I would never let anyone get close to me or really commit. I dated someone for 5 years and never met their family. We both knew it would not go anywhere serious. It was nice to be in a relationship where the other person was on the same page, but I was cheating myself of a true, honest connection. This is probably the reason I never had any children. I never chose myself enough to create a loving foundation with another person to be able to create a family together. I have never felt safe, so why would I bring another human being into this world? The realization of my attachment style and the trauma of our breakup is what was the catalyst to becoming a super empath. Even though I do not wish this pain on anyone, I am extremely grateful for the journey and the awakening. How childhood sensitivity becomes adult empathy. Being naturally attuned to parents' moods or household dynamics. Many empaths can trace their sensitivity back to their earliest years. As children, they often became hyper-aware of the emotional climate in their home. Maybe it was a parent who was unpredictable or a household where love felt conditional. A sensitive child learns quickly to tune into the subtle cues, the tone of voice, the body language, even the way a door is shut, because those little signals help them predict what's coming next. This early emotional radar was a way to stay safe, but it also laid the foundation for the empath's ability to feel into others so deeply. Learning to scan the room as a survival skill. For many super empaths, this sensitivity did not stop with just one parent. It extended into every environment they entered. Scanning the room became the second nature. Is everyone okay? Is there tension? Do I need to shrink myself to be extra helpful right now? At first, this scanning was about survival. It helped the child avoid conflict, rejection, or punishment. But later in life, this same skill became the empath's gift, the ability to walk in a room and instantly sense who is hurting, who needs support, and what energy is present. Sensitivity is both defense mechanism and superpower. It's important to recognize that what began as a protective strategy can also become a source of empowerment. Sensitivity helped the child survive, but as an adult, it transforms into empathy, intuition, and compassion. When healed, the sensitivity is no longer about fear, it's about connection. The super empath can channel the same skill, not to keep themselves safe, but to create a safe space for others. What once felt like a burden, being too sensitive, becomes a superpower that allows them to guide, support, and inspire. Triggers and gifts from early experiences. How neglect, criticism, or emotional absence fueled hyper-awareness. For many empaths, childhood wasn't just about being sensitive, it was about learning how to cope when their sensitivity wasn't honored. A child who was criticized for crying, dismissed for making a big deal, or ignored when they needed comfort, begins to internalize the message, I have to figure out what others need before I can have my own needs met. This creates hyper-awareness. The child learns to anticipate shifts in energy, to soothe others before conflicts arise, and to take responsibility for everyone else's emotion. While it's painful, this conditioning also strengthens their ability to detect the most subtle emotional undercurrents. The double edge. Triggers of abandonment or rejection versus gifts of compassion and intuition. These early experiences cut both ways. On one hand, they can create lifelong triggers, feeling unworthy when ignored, spiraling into fear when faced with rejection, or overextending in relationships to avoid abandonment. On the other hand, the empath's ability to notice what others overlook become their greatest gifts. They can pick up on someone's sadness before a word is spoken, sense tension beneath a smile, and offer comfort in ways that feel almost magical. This is the paradox of the empath's gift. It is born from pain, but it blooms into extraordinary compassion. Childhood wounds become the radar that allows empaths to tune into others. When you think about it, the very wounds that made an empath feel unseen are the same ones that attuned them so finely to the world around them. Their inner child developed a radar that says, I'll never be caught off guard again. While that radar was once about survival, in adulthood, it becomes a tool for deep connection. Healed, it allows the super empath to sense the unsaid, to bring comfort where it is needed, and to see people in their fullness. This transformation, turning old wounds into wisdom, is where the empath's true power lies. Healing through reparenting and boundaries. Reparenting as giving your inner child the safety and love they lacked. One of the most powerful steps for a super empath is learning to reparent themselves. Reparenting means you step into the role of the loving, attentive caregiver your inner child always needed. Instead of pushing down your feelings or abandoning your needs the way others may have done, you now learn to listen, comfort, and nurture yourself. This might look like reminding yourself it's okay to feel this, or offering yourself gentleness when you make mistakes. The more you practice, the more your inner child learns it's safe to exist, safe to express, and safer to be cared for, this time by you. Learning to say no as an act of self-love, not rejection. For many empaths, boundaries feel uncomfortable at first. Saying no could trigger guilt or fear of letting someone down, but reframing boundaries as an act of love changes everything. When you say no, you're not rejecting somebody. You're choosing to honor your own capacity and needs. Boundaries are like fences around a garden. They protect what is precious so it can flourish. For the empath, This means learning to stop overgiving, stop rescuing, and stop stretching themselves beyond exhaustion. Saying no is the gateway to saying yes to your own well-being. Balancing care for others with care for yourself. Empaths thrive when they remember that their gift is the most powerful when it flows from balance, not depletion. True healing comes when you can still care deeply for others, but not at the cost of yourself. This balance might look like scheduling downtime after holding space for someone else, practicing grounding rituals to release others' energy, or allowing yourself to receive as much as you give. When the inner child feels safe, the adult empath can choose connection from a place of empowerment rather than obligation. In this balance, empathy evolves from survival, not strength, and from compulsion into conscious choice. The connection between the wounded inner child and the super empath. Empathy as rooted in survival. If I can see what's wrong, maybe I'll be safe. At its core, empathy often begins as a survival mechanism. The wounded inner child learns that the best way to stay safe is to stay alert. If they can sense their parent's frustration before it erupts, or detect when love might be withdrawn, then they can adjust their behavior to avoid pain. This survival-based empathy is powerful, but it comes at a cost. The child learns to prioritize others' needs over their own. As adults, super empaths may carry the pattern into relationships, constantly monitoring, fixing, and rescuing in an effort to feel secure. How wounds fuel the empath's need to fix, rescue, or overgive. Because the inner child still longs for safety and unconditional love, the adult empath often feels pulled to give more than they have. They may believe that if they can just love enough, help enough, or anticipate everyone's needs, they'll finally be valued and safe from rejection. This is where the empath's gifts become entangled with their wound. Overgiving isn't true compassion. It's the inner child still trying to earn what they should have received freely. Without healing, this cycle can leave empaths depleted, resentful, or trapped in unhealthy relationships. The shift. When healing happens, empathy evolves from compulsion to choice. The transformation begins when the super empath heals the inner child. By reparenting themselves, they start to meet the needs that once drove their overgiving. They realize that love and safety are not earned through sacrifice, they're cultivated within. When the inner child feels secure, empathy no longer comes from fear or compulsion. It comes from conscious choice. In this empowered state, the super empath can decide when and how to use their sensitivity. Instead of being drained by everyone's emotions, they channel their gift into leadership, healing, and authentic connection. This is where empathy becomes not just a survival tool, but a superpower. Empathy is often rooted in survival. For many super empaths, empathy didn't begin as a gift, it began as a protection. As children, they learned to read the room, to anticipate moods, and to take the responsibility for others' emotions, all in an effort to feel safe in environments where love may have never felt conditional. This survival-based empathy is what sharpened their sensitivity, but it also taught them to ignore their own needs. Recognizing this origin is empowering because it helps empaths understand your ability to feel so deeply is not weakness. It's proof of how strong and adaptive you were, even as a child. Healing the child empowers the adult. When you begin the process of reparenting your inner child, offering yourself the comfort and safety and validation you always needed, you break free from old cycles. No longer are you pulled to give compulsively, just to feel secure. Instead, you become able to choose when and how you use your gift for empathy. This shift is where true empowerment begins. The child within you feels safe. The adult version of you can finally step into grounded, conscious form of empathy. You move from being at the mercy of your sensitivity to becoming the master of it. Balance is key. Empathy without boundaries leads to exhaustion. Boundaries without empathy can feel cold or disconnected. True empowerment lies in the balance. When you pair your gift of deep sensitivity with self-respect, healthy boundaries, and consistent self-love, empathy becomes a wellspring instead of a drain. Balance means you can give without overextending, love without losing yourself, and show compassion without self-abandonment. This is the sweet spot of the super empath, the place where your sensitivity serves both others and yourself in equal measure. Your inner child isn't just a wound, it's also a wellspring of your greatest gifts. By tending to that child within, you are free from patterns of overgiving and step into the strength of the super empath. The journey isn't about silencing your sensitivity, it's about transforming it into wisdom, resilience, and empowered compassion. Thank you so much for joining me today and walking through this very personal topic. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend or loved one who might be going through their own transformation. Make sure to hit the subscribe so you don't miss a future episode, and if you feel called to do so, leave a review. It helps this community grow and supports others in finding the guidance they need. And in our next episode, we'll explore one of the deepest wounds empaths face, the fear of abandonment. We'll talk about why it shows up, how it shapes relationships, and how to begin letting it go so you can feel safe and in love with yourself. You won't want to miss this one.